The views and opinions expressed on this program are those of the participants and do not reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
BronxNet. Your voice, your views, your vision.
Good evening, and welcome to Bronxtalk. The numbers say that crime in the city is down, and that crime in the Bronx is down. But tell that to the families of victims of gun violence in our borough. Tell that to residents of housing projects and neighborhoods who are held hostage by conflicts between rival gangs. Places where the tragic reality is that if something breaks wrong and you and your child happens to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, in our era of low crime, we have yet another unacceptable number. Enter into this mix a group called Save Our Streets, SOS, in the South Bronx, written up recently in the Mott Haven Herald. This is a well-coordinated program that takes one-time gang members and employs them as so-called violence interrupters in an attempt to interrupt the cycle of violence that plagues not only the Bronx, but really every metropolis in America, large and small. We'll meet them tonight, and we'll talk about curbing gun violence in the Bronx. If you want to share your story or offer an idea or share an opinion or ask a question, then call in 718-960-7241. Or you can email questions or comments to us at bronxtalk@bronxnet.org, and we'll read those on the air during a future edition of our program. But for the here and now in our studio, the program manager for SOS, Hakeem Yamadi. Good evening, sir. Thank you for joining us. Good evening. And a violence interrupter, Rafael Cespedes. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Hakeem, let's start with you. You told me beforehand that, and I'm so sorry to hear that you are a victim because your son was the direct victim of gun violence. Tell me about SOS and what the philosophy it is and how it works.
SOS is a model out of Chicago, a model out of Chicago Cure Violence. We identify high-risk individuals that's on the streets. They either are considered gang members, all right, or might be shooters that belong to a gang. Might have been somebody who just came home from prison trying to get some type of revenge. It might be somebody who has hurt somebody, before with violence. And we target the ages of 16 to 24 years old,
And then what do you do with those people?
Well, once we identify them, like Lobo, as he goes on here, explain, he'll identify them, he'll bring them to outreach workers. Our outreach workers have a caseload of 15, what we call participants. We try to help them either get back in school, find some type of employment, job training, help them with ID, medical issues, even go to court with them when they got court cases.
Do you see a turnaround that here's a person who could be identified as dangerous or in danger or potentially a danger to us all, and do you see the turnaround?
Yes, we see some change in some, but it's an ongoing process. I mean, when we first started, we had to build a relationship with the young people in the community because we just came in a community, nobody knew who we were, so the team had to prove their credibility, and to the time, that's how we started identifying. We met Lobo in the street, in the community.
I'm going to call him Raphael,
well,
but
Raphael,
that's okay.
Raphael. We met Raphael in the community, and he became a volunteer in the program.
Talk to me, and then we're going to bring Raphael into the discussion, but talk to me a little bit about how you identify them. You say you identify them. The rest of us will say, what do you get a note from the police? That's the guy. What do you do?
Well, we're in a community we call it canvas in the community. We are in from 147th and St. Anne's Avenue to 156 and Union Avenue. So that covers a lot of territory. Trinity, Caldwell, Moore houses, St. Mary houses, Adams houses, the side streets in between there.
So I'm just trying to get a real sense. So people literally walk around the streets and just talk to store owners?
We'll walk around in the community, and if they're in the park, go talk to them in the park. We have pub ed material that we hand out, talk about choices.
Any of the people in danger when they do that? Are you concerned about that?
Right now anybody could be in danger because they can start shooting anytime.
You heard me say that at the beginning of the show.
I mean, it can happen anytime.
Rafael Cespedes, first of all, for both of you, really, thank you for the work that you're doing. Talk to me about your background so people would know how you got to be what you were all the way up to doing this kind of work.
All right. I grew up with a stepfather, so I've always, always questioned why was it that my real father wasn't around, and growing up I was actually confused about, like, why isn't my father there? Does he not love me?
Some very fundamental questions about any young person.
Yes.
And who they are and as they grow.
Yeah, so in time, I started, feeling like no other man can tell me what to do. Nobody else can tell me what to do. My father never did it, so why would I let anybody else do it? You understand? That was my way of thinking.
And so as you were growing up, you tended to associate with the wrong people or got involved? Be very specific.
Definitely. I started cutting class, minor stuff. It started getting serious when, I didn't join a gang till I was about 19, but I was always gang affiliated. You understand? Like,
you needed
my
that
friends.
for protection?
No, not at all. It was just that my friends were in a gang and they were my friends, so...
So you were involved, and then you eventually did join a gang?
Yes, I eventually did.
For about how
long? About 5 years.
And through that process, what did you do? What does a gang member do?
Well, me, I didn't do anything because my past spoke for itself. People already knew who I was. They took me in with open arms because they wanted me to be with them. They needed people like me, Well,
what was wrong with it? I mean, listen, if we have friends and somebody takes you in or takes you under their wing, that's nice. What made you ultimately say, you know what, this is not what I ought to be doing?
The cycle of, seeing all of my brothers, getting locked up for things that people send them to do that doesn't benefit us at all,
Like what?
Like...
Guns?
Yeah, everything. Guns,
drugs,
stabbing, everything, And
you saw that happening?
I saw that happening since I was young, So to me, that was always normal. So I always looked at it before like, oh, that's nothing, I'm gonna go do this. I'm gonna go beat this guy up.
So then you got older and you decided this was not the way to be. And in a way, the question I'm about to ask is the same fundamental question that SOS does. How do you get in the middle? How do you interrupt this cycle of violence so that we can stop other young people from being in this situation? And I'm just going to articulate what seems plainly obvious. Here's young people who don't have a grounding, who don't have a family, and then here's a gang who's, just as you expressed, I'm going to take you in under our wing. Well, goodness gracious, even if you're doing the wrong thing, somebody's taking me in under my wing. That's the best thing that's ever happened to me. How do you interrupt that cycle so they don't get taken under the wing of the wrong people?
Basically, stay away from the people hanging out, and try to do everything positive. Stay in school, because at the end of the day, most of the gang members that I've known never finished school. So that's somewhere where you can start.
You go up to somebody sitting in the park and you know that these guys are in gangs, and then you talk to them?
Yeah.
And do they look at you like, yeah, okay, dude, or do they listen to you and respond?
I mean, some of the guys that I don't know, they might look at me like, yeah, all right, and then there's guys that know me and know who I am and know how far I've come, and they actually take the time out to listen where I'm coming from, because they know I've made a big change, so they give me that respect. And hear me out and hear what I have to say, and I also hear out, what they have to say. I might ask them a question like, "Yo, why you continue to do this?" And then I get them to speak back.
How do we get that person that Raphael talks to actually change his life or change his behavior? It can't possibly be one conversation sitting on a park bench.
Multiple conversations.
And then he goes back to them later on.
Multiple conversations. What Raphael would do, or some of the other guys would do, share their experiences, what they went through. So if they might tell them that, they might have did X amount of years in jail. Their friends don't come and see them. Nobody comes and see them but their mother. To get them to change their mindset. That's what it was about, to change their mindset. Why are you shooting people? So if it's a beef, let us somewhat come and help mediate this beef with the other parties and see if we could bring everybody to the table.
The article I spoke about at the top of the show in the Mott Haven Herald, described something that you were talking about, and it's very difficult for me to trace and what they were saying, that the gang in the Moore houses was against the gang in the Jackson houses. This, cops and robbers and cowboys and Indians is one thing. This is pretty, first of all, serious stuff, and second of all, crazy stuff.
What happens in a community, one is one of the poorest communities in the country, matter of fact, in the world. So, is sometimes in traveling, I remember when I was a kid, I could travel any part of the Bronx, all right? Anywhere, had no problem with nobody. Nowadays, because you might have the wrong color on at one time, somebody don't like you, somebody looking for a reputation, things of that nature. We used to go looking for girls. Now you go looking for girls, possibly you get killed, going to look at a girl. So
how do you substitute this feeling of family so that somebody, let's say in the situation that Raphael was in, now all of a sudden says, well, I understand what you're saying, but like these are my friends here and they take care of me. What do you do to take care of them so that they actually have something to rely on?
They're on the street every day. So on the street every day, they see them, they try to catch up to them. How you doing? Sometimes even take them and go get something to eat. Come over to the office. We might have, a training that you might want to go to. You want to get back in school. All right, let us help you get back in school. Even we talk about choices. We got a card that got a 6x9 cell or 6 feet under. So we talk about choices. You got to think about choices. All right, a lot of times nobody put it to them that way. So
much like Raphael said the same thing.
So like a person like Rob, you got to want to change. That's the other thing. You got to want to change. Mm-hmm. We get guys, they want to change. They say they want to change. They want a job. They don't show up. But we keep on plugging at them. We keep on sticking with them. We keep on sticking with them to show them that we care. Because that's the thing. They need to see that you really care.
Consistency. Basically.
I was going to ask you about that. In other words, if you were to show up once, then you'd look like every other caseworker that was out there. But then you're back there the next day, right?
Yep.
How long does it take? And how, I'm still trying to get to that
You can't
there's
put
no
a
way to
time
tell?
on it.
How long does it take
To
convert
them?
It can't. It depends on the person.
Yeah, it depends on the person. It depends who's talking to them and, their background, because sometimes, like, let's say I might approach someone and my background isn't similar to his. Maybe someone on the team has a similar background to his. I might be like, I know someone, that you can speak with that's been through kind of the same things you're going through right now, and you can speak with him. And, sometimes they might not feel comfortable with me, but that's why we have a team. If it's not with me, it's with someone else. Hakeem.
Do you walk around alone, or you go with a couple of people?
It's always in a team. Being that we in dangerous neighborhoods, I grew up in. I don't even feel right calling it a dangerous neighborhood because
it's home.
It's home.
I respect that.
So we pretty much, like I said, being that it's dangerous neighborhoods, we have to stick together because, we can't have one guy in Moore houses and one guy in John Adams, and then something happens in Moore houses, then the guys in John Adams don't know, and, so we always stick together. There's always a outreach worker and, a few of the VIs.
You know, I'm going to
violence interrupters.
express on the air now what I was telling you, what I was thinking about beforehand. That there are places in our borough and this section of town that we're talking about here, that are like little black holes that nobody knows about what goes on, and everybody says, "Well, I wouldn't go in there." But we have so many people living in there,
Right.
and potentially living in danger, living in situations of no hope. That the reason that I asked you to come on the show was because we can't keep doing this. Do you feel like it's effective, or is it just monumentally frustrating?
I feel like it's effective. The respect that I had, well, I'm not gonna say I had respect before. It was more like fear because of, you know, who I was and what I was capable of doing.
So you even used that for the right reasons to try
Yes.
and convert somebody.
Yes, I mean, at the end of the day, you know, they feared me, but I'd rather be respected, you know. So the way that went about was like, especially like the guys that feared me, they actually opened up to me more once they seen what I was doing. So they felt like, you know what, he's not as...
If he could do this...
Yes.
Do you feel like you're able to get your arms around this problem, or is the problem in this particular part of the Bronx, and there's many parts of the Bronx where we could talk about, that the problem is so large that there's just never enough outreach workers. There's never, because we just need more and more of this.
I feel...
He's ready to answer, but I'll ask you first, and then we'll go to him.
I feel that in our area that we're covering now, in our catchment area now, I feel that we have everything down packed. You know, I actually grew up in that neighborhood. A few of the guys on the team grew up in that neighborhood, so that actually helps us even more. But on a larger scale, I feel that we do need to expand, and we do need more outreach workers and more violence interrupters, you know, because at the end of the day, we there to speak to them and to hear them out. A lot of times no one's there, you know, to speak to those people and to hear them out, you know, so we're that missing link that
And so
I never had.
obviously, the more people you have doing it, the better. Go ahead. I know...
I mean, one of the other things
wanna say
was that we get called in other communities, all right, to come out.
Really?
You know, we get called.
We need help.
We get called by schools to come in and speak to the young people in the school, or to come to, like, they have a Stop the Violence. They ask somebody on our team to come and speak. So we get calls. I mean, we have been as far as Council Hill, all right, just to
All the way up north.
to squash a beef. I mean, you know, because somebody had reached out to us,
And
asked
they
us
would
to
reach
help.
out to you because there's two gangs going at it, or there's
Well,
something going on, or
it was
a climate.
something going on, and they needed the kid was in a program, and the social worker felt that he needed some help. The kid wasn't telling the truth; he wasn't being honest. So what he was putting on Facebook, you know, on the social media, that caused a lot of issues and problems, and it becomes not just in your neighborhood; it's anywhere you go.
That's worldwide,
And that's, you know.
Were you able to solve those? Go somewhere else?
We was able to solve that problem. But how we did it was we reached out to the young people that's in the community that are up there that might be shot callers, and so we knew a couple. One of the guys on the team, he reached out to a guy, and he came and he called some other guys, and we brought the kid down, and you know we got it resolved. You know, when we left.
Talk to me about numbers. You know, we want to measure how it's doing
Well,
over time. You've been doing this, you told me, for about a year and a half.
A year and a half. When we first started, it was 15 shootings in the area that we was in. Before we started.
Over what period of time?
Over a year time, from January to December. So we get data, so we compare, like today, year to date. Like last year, we had 2 shootings. We had 2 homicides, all right, but 4 shootings, all right?
So we're now 15 down to 6.
Right. So now, you know, now this year, we have 1 shooting, all right, and that was January 17th. So we have 107 days with no shootings. All right.
You know, I wish we could all stand up and applaud.
But you know, but because of the team and the relationship they have in the community, you know, talking to the individuals, you know, and we don't have no community center have a gym. It's got a community room. They might go shoot pool. You know, the other night they was in.
So in other words, if you had a temporary situation where you could say, hey, look, let's just get away from here. Let's hang out a little bit in a healthy environment, whether play pool or play basketball.
Yeah,
or
we
something.
take them to the movies, take them out the neighborhood.
Who pays for that?
We do. That's all right.
I do want to.
We just went to a Yankee game the other day.
Did you?
Yeah.
Good for you. I want to just talk about the numbers real quick and just put it in context for other people, because we hear numbers about all kinds of things, and you'll hear crime numbers and everything else. When you hear the number 15, you'll say, well, 15. But I want you to think, as a parent, as a Bronxite, about 15 families who are dealing with just the worst horror anybody could imagine. That is a lot of people in one Bronx neighborhood.
Right.
So again, I don't want people to say, well, 15, it's not 105 or whatever it is. That is, as I said at the top of the show, one makes me extremely angry.
When we first look at the data, the first 3 months in the year of 2012, there was a shooting a month. All right. Then it went to, as it got a little bit warmer, one day might have been 3 shootings. All right. The 3 people got shot. One might have been fatal out of the 3. But, so we started keeping our data like that. When this year or last year, January or June, we had 1 shooting. Mm-hmm. All right. October, we had another shooting, which was fatal. All right. The both of those. We as a team, we went to the funerals and paid our respect. We do a shooting response. So after a shooting, we got to respond in 72 hours. We do a shooting response. We put out flyers. We hand out flyers, ask the people in the community to come out, and we talk about the violence, all right? And see if we have some of the clergy to come out. So we open with prayer, and we talk about the violence in the community. Half an hour, 45 minutes. We did a candlelight visual. So, when there's a shooting, we're out the area where there's a shooting at. All right, we know the first day the police are going to be out there doing their job, but the next day we handing out flyer, pub ed, trying to rally up the community to come out, and and let the community, let everybody know that they're tired of the shooting that's going on. Mm-hmm.
Raphael, as far as back to the idea of those numbers and where we're at. Still big problems out there? Still many? You've been at it the organization's been there for a year and a half. How bad is it? Characterize where we're at. Are we doing okay? Are we doing better?
Now?
Yes.
Way better.
Way better.
Way better because, like the numbers, 2012 was 15 and three deaths, Out of the 15, 3 died. Then the next year, it was 5 and 2. So out of the 5, 2 were fatal. So when you look at it, 15 and 3, now it's 5 and 2, and now this year so far, it's only 1.
In a way, I want you to give me the feeling out there when you go. And again, I'll use a park bench, or you walk in a community area. What's the feeling? Still fear of everybody, or do you feel like slowly but surely you're kind of washing away some of the problems?
Slowly but surely, we are washing away the problems. It used to be times where after a certain time, it wouldn't be safe to be in the parks, especially in John Adams, where it's pretty much closed off, and St. Mary's houses and more houses is you walk in there and it's closed off, So you could have been scared in the past. Now it's a little better. Yeah, now it's a little better because you're not hearing shootouts and you're not hearing about people dying as oftenly, so that doesn't cross your mind as often as it would have if you're hearing it every day and you're hearing about people dying every day. You're going to actually be worried. Difficult to find people to be on the team? In other words, in a way, it's like you've got to find people who've been through it, because I think the only way to be effective, at least the way you described it, is if somebody's really been through it. It's not difficult. It all matters how bad you want it, Some guys, they stop right when we're you can start off as a volunteer like I did. I volunteered for 6 months. And when I tell them that, they're like, 6 months volunteering, you don't really want it that bad, because you just want. Seems to me you'd have to be driven by the notion. Hakeem, we're almost done, but go ahead.
One of the other things that Raphael was saying is that, a lot of times we try to identify people from the community that they might have a relationship with some of the guys on the street. It makes it that much more easier to help bring them in, because to see them making a change.
One of the things that I want to just get to for people, because we're talking to everybody in the Bronx, are we able to duplicate this elsewhere? And are there other places? You mentioned Castle Hill that you would call up there. Can this be duplicated and expanded?
Yes.
Talk to me about what it would take to do that.
One is funding. All right?
You're funded by the city council.
We got funded by the city council. It's a year-to-year type of thing. The organization we work for, Center of Court Innovation, they are really active in the community about helping families make changes.
And by the way, for people who want to interact, parents who have questions or others, the website is right up there, so you can check it out.
So the other thing is that in every community they need programs like this, because what happens is we see that the city government, they shut down a lot of places that kids can't go. It used to be a time you could go after school to the evening
You
center.
And I were talking about how life used to be when we were both
That's
younger.
how it was when we grew up.
Of course.
But they're not able to have that no longer. Even in some locations, there's no recreational place for them, no gyms there for them. And a lot of times, they got to travel to another neighborhood. So
And see, that is a haul for someone like Raphael to say, hey, we want you to do the right thing, but by the way, get on the bus with me and let's go somewhere else. That makes it much more difficult.
We try to get the schools to open up to let us use their gyms in the evening time.
Are you able to do that?
Right now,
it's
been like...
Everybody's scared. Nobody wants to take a chance.
But at the end of the day, they make you, if you do it, you got to have police security there.
Hakeem Yamadi, thank you for the work that you do, and Raphael Cespedes, thank you for doing what you do, and keep doing it. We need you real badly in this borough and all over the city, and if hopefully we can expand the idea and tell people what we need, and we did that tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
The phone numbers, the contact info is all up there, so anybody who wants to get in touch, they can do that. Folks, and if you do have further comments or questions on anything you heard on tonight's show or anything going on in the Bronx, then email them to us, bronxtalk@bronxnet.org. And you can also post them on our Facebook page. We'll read them on the air during a future edition of our program. If you ask me a question like how can we get in touch, I will make sure you get in touch with the people who are on our show or pass your question or comment along. You can see our archives. You can watch all our old shows at bronxnet.org. You check out the Bronx Talk link on the bottom right navigation bar. Thanks to our producer, Jane Filoro, director is Shirley Arietta. And we'll see you next week. We'll talk more about the Bronx.
Thank you.
Maybe he's really focused.
Maybe he likes spinning the wheels.
Maybe he just loves trucks.
Preoccupation with objects is one early sign of autism.